Hello, kids. Welcome back. Your Poppy Jacob, your resident 40-year-old man. I'm back here for another YouTube video. I'm giving you predictions, some bold ones, to say the least. I'm giving you one of my favorite franchises. I will be predicting how it's going to go forward, going into the future. And I'm also going to be predicting the future of American politics. The 2024 election, I will show you my predictions, but first, elephant out of the room. I'm bald now. Get that out of the way. Now, on to predictions. So, you know what one of my favorite series recently has been? Invincible. But there's already a comic for that. People already know what's going to happen. So, instead, I'm going to predict my favorite, arguably my favorite movie of all time, Moonfall. I'm going to give you my prediction, which is mostly a fan fiction, to be fair, of how I believe a Moonfall sequel will go. Now, most of you are probably thinking, what the hell is Moonfall? Moonfall was a movie by Roland Emmerich that cost about $200 million-ish to make. And it got around, I believe, $67 million at the box office. So realistically, probably lost around $300 million on Moonfall. And it is one of the craziest movies. I'm spoiling the whole movie for you now, if you haven't seen it. So, I recommend watching Moonfall immediately. It is the single greatest movie you'll ever see in your entire life. So, before I actually start my predictions and how I think the movie Moonfall 2 might go, let me get back a little over there so I can put up pictures. Let me give you a recap summary of Moonfall 1. So, we begin with our two astronauts, Halle Berry and Brian Wilson. I know Brian because Brian Wilson is the most generic sounding white guy name in a movie. And then there's Halle Berry. You'll never learn her character's name. That's how we're starting. So they start off with Marvel, like they're doing Marvel funny quippy humor. With like their one friend. We don't get attached to him. Their one friend dies in 4 minutes. And they're just singing Africa by Toto. Next, we meet our character, played by the same guy who played Samwell Tarly. I'm going to be calling him Samwell the whole video, because that's all I know him by. Now, this Samwell Tarly guy is a conspiracy theorist, and his conspiracy theory is rather different than what I think most of us would expect a normal conspiracy to be. His conspiracy is that the moon is something called a megastructure. Now, throughout this whole movie, they never define what a megastructure actually is. We're just going along with him. But somehow, this no-name guy is smarter than everybody who works at NASA. And just like, he knows that this thing's a megastructure. And he's right. Key detail about him. First scene we meet his cat. Cat's is one of the second character who I remember their name. There's Brian Wilson, and the cat's name is Fuzz Aldrin. And I don't know why that birthday effect is going on. I'm not redoing this. Second, when we meet him, one of his lines, he's sneaking into this laboratory institute to try to figure out the truth of what's going on. And his line is, "What would Elon do?"
What would Elon do?
Which is such a funny line to put in a movie. It's such a good line. It's so good. So, they go through some shenanigans. So they meet up with each other. Brian ends up respecting and they become like good friends. Him and Samwell Tarly. Brian's like the stereotypical, oh, I'm a badass, cool guy. They go into space again with Halle Berry. So, sidetrack. Brian has a son. They have like one scene together where they're like, "Oh, I love my son. Free him from jail." His son's in jail for some reason. And eventually, there's like a whole side plot involving his son on Earth. And I'm saying this because there's a character who they clearly invented so they could put the movie in a Chinese box office. Like throughout the entire movie, she's teaching this other kid how to speak Mandarin. Like, they clearly put her in this movie specifically for the purpose of appealing to the Chinese box office and no other reason. So, there, that's that, I had to mention that. So they enter the moon, and I couldn't even like write down what happens in the moon because it's so insane. I needed Wikipedia's plot summary help for their time in the moon. So they find out the moon is a Dyson sphere powered by a white dwarf at the center. So we discover that humans are not like naturally born and native to the Earth. So there were billions of years ago, we had like there were humans all over the galaxy, but then they made an AI force that killed all the humans. Oh, I should probably mention this too. The entire movie, the whole plot, the movie's called Moonfall because the moon is crashing into the Earth. I probably should have started with that so this movie made sense. So the moon's been slowly crashing into the Earth. We discover, however, that this AI, the humans built the moon as like a genetic code to make more life of humans. And the moon is like a protector. So, and there's this AI thing that's like trying to destroy the moon and crash it into the Earth to kill all humans. So it would kill all humans on Earth, and it would kill the moon, which is like where all humans come from. So ultimately, they save the day. They destroy that. They're like a little bit of AI, but like there's still AI throughout the whole galaxy. And Samuel Tarly, he dies at the end, but then it's revealed in the post-credit scene that he's actually alive. So this movie is absolutely insane, and I'm summarizing the plot, and this is all over the place, but there's so many little things. There's so many good quippy one-liners, so many good little things. So recommendation, you must watch Moonfall, all of you. But now it's time for my predictions for a sequel to Moonfall. So we begin back on Earth. Brian is traumatized by experiences. So we can see in the first movie that the entire Earth has been completely destroyed. Like, to the point where it's nearly uninhabitable. But this is a Roland Emmerich movie, so the Earth is just fine now. It's all good. The whole beginning is going to be like he's really struggling. Him and his son are living together. So I think Brian and his son, I don't remember Sonny the son's name, third character I remember. They're hanging out on Earth, trying to like convince people of what's going on. But then Brian eventually gets a message from Samuel, that he's actually alive. So Brian, Sonny, and Halle Berry go back up to the moon. And I'm not sure specifically how they're going to get back up to the moon. They use a space shuttle in the first movie, but I feel like I think what would really be great for this movie is we have a surprise cut where someone goes, well, how do we get to the moon? And we find out Brian still has that spaceship that he used at the end of the movie. So that's my ideal scenario for how I want that scene to go. Just cuts, it's secretly been in his backyard the whole time, and then they just jetpack off to the moon. So we discover that they find Sam alive. His physical body died, but he's now like an avatar of the moon, partially. And his mind has been linked with the moon, and they understand each other now. So we're going to get that explanation. But Sam, he's going to stay on the moon the whole time, but they're going to be able to communicate with each other. He's going to be on the moon, they're on Earth, they're going to talk to each other. Got it. Okay. So the entire time while they're on the moon, this is my first little plot wrench. 3 years have passed, because for some reason, the gravity on the moon now is much greater than how it is on the Earth. So 3 years have passed, and throughout their time on the moon, we discover that the Earth was invaded by the AI system. So the Earth, they're going to get back to the Earth, and it's like going to be completely controlled by the AI, more or less. There's going to be a small resistance force that they're going to hear about, but I think this resistance force is going to be a red herring. We think that the resistance is going to be a big deal, but eventually they are gonna like stumble into, I don't know how the hell they're gonna do this. They're gonna stumble into a shadow government that turns out the shadow government has been in charge of every conspiracy that's ever happened, and they're all true. So the most prominent one that I want to go into, I love the idea that the shadow government, A, faked the moon landing, and I want to give their reasoning behind it as they did it because they knew the government was building rockets to go up to the moon, and by faking it, then people would be like, wow, we went to the moon. But then they knew people would stop caring. So, I know this makes no sense. But they believed that by bringing them to the moon, and then just stopping the program, they were killing all the interest in the moon, even though they never went to the moon because they didn't want anybody to go there. So this shadow government knows everything about the moon. Like, everything. They know the whole thing. They did... Also, I want there to be, like, a montage scene in the background where it shows, like, they killed JFK. They did 9/11. Like, maybe they built the pyramids, too. Like, that's my idea for this group. Everything. So they've done everything in history. But the moon thing specifically, I really want to emphasize that it makes no sense at that point that they faked the moon landing to stop interest in going to the moon. But I feel like that's something this sequel would do, is have a plot point that really doesn't make any sense. So, okay. So I'm doing this too because it fits in line with the themes of the original movie. So the original movie had a weird thing where it felt like they were just saying like all conspiracy theorists are right. And I'm continuing on with that idea in this movie, where now all conspiracy theorists still are right in this world. Okay. So so they're gonna go out of the shadow government, and they're gonna learn from this conspiracy theory group that the AI originally decided to kill all the original humans because they were evil in some capacity. So we're gonna have like some like they're gonna be like, oh, all they cared about was greed and their capitalism ruined them or something like that. It's gonna be some like really corny line, but then Brian's gonna be like, we can be better than them. So that shadow government also is like somewhat pro AI, but Brian is going to get out. They're going to try to stop the shadow government's going to try to stop them. They're going to escape their compound. We're nearing the finale of the movie. So here's my idea, and I don't know how we're going to get to it, but somehow the moon is going to transform into some type of like Gundam super alien weapon, and they're going to fight the AI beings. So the moon, there's going to be this crazy battle of like the moon as like a Gundam fighting a goddamn AI. And I think the movie should end with the moon dying and Brian somehow now being in charge of the Earth. So that sets us up for the climactic sequel where Brian being in charge of the Earth, are most likely. They'll have crazy new space tech. They've been preparing for the AI all this time. So yeah, that sets up for a good place for a sequel. Climactic showdown with the AI in the last one. Let's see a Moonfall 2 come out before I predict Moonfall 3. But yeah, I also some side things I want in this movie. Now these are just like I want them in the movie. So first, Elon Musk cameo. They wrench him in the first movie. He seems stupid enough to do it. Done. They also should reference Rick from Rick and Morty in some capacity. I don't know how, but they will. So I've also come up with 4 one-liners, and these don't necessarily need to be in the movie, but I really like them. So, he who controls the moon controls the destiny of our world. So I don't know where, just throw that in there. I think after the moon transformed into like the Gundam and after the battle's over, somebody, it could be anybody, just going to go, I'm never going to look at the moon the same way again. And I felt so clever for this one. Saving the moon? That's lunacy. So, yeah, that's my prediction, or mostly a fan fiction, I'll be real, for a Moonfall 2 sequel. So yeah. Okay, so here in this scheme of predictions, I am now going to give you my predictions for the 2024 election. So going from Moonfall to politics. So here we go. This is my prediction for how the 2024 election map is going to go. I do think Biden is personally the favorite to win. Incumbents have lots of advantages. Trump is barely beating him in the swing states in the polls right now. I think Biden's position is only getting stronger from where he's at. 2022 was just such a very good midterm election for Democrats that I think he has a very good shot at winning. I mean, Obama suffered a much worse midterm than Biden did and went on to win re-election in a pretty solid way. While I do think it is going to be a closer election, I do think that Biden is ultimately going to pull it out. So there's only really 6 states we actually care about in this election: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. So let me start with what I think Trump is more likely to win: Nevada. Trump has shown a lot of strength with the Latino community. Now, Nevada is a state that actually did flip the governorship to the GOP back in 2022. It was a little bit of a bright spot for them. I personally think that Trump's strength with Latino voters is ultimately going to carry him the state of Nevada. But this is going to be a very tight race. I can go anywhere. But now on to Arizona. Arizona is also a heavy Latino state, but I have 3 factors that led me to believe that I believe Joe Biden's going to win Arizona, and I think it's going to be a decent... I feel very comfortable that Joe Biden's going to win Arizona. First fact. Joe Biden, the Democrats won Arizona in pretty much every race in 2022. They didn't win necessarily at a comfortable margin. In the Senate race, they won in a pretty comfortable margin. In the governor race, it was extremely close, but the Senate, they won by a fairly comfortable margin. Federal race, for that fact alone, I think Arizona's more likely to vote Biden, but we'll see how the election goes. Let's see. I don't know if that's true. Okay. Arizona, I think, is more likely to Biden for first reason. Second reason. Currently, the Senate race, which we'll get to, Democrats are very heavily favored to win the Senate race. I think that is going to put an up pull on Biden and going to be more likely to push him to a victory, because I think split ticket voting, while it's a thing, it's still usually only around 3 to 4% of the electorate. I don't think there's going to be a massive split ticket voting in that regard. The Ruben Gallego Donald Trump voter is a very interesting beast. But third, the most recent Arizona ruling on abortion. So the Supreme Court ruled that a law from before the Civil War on abortion, which is like very extreme, like women will go to jail for having abortions. They made that legal that law in place in Arizona. Abortion's a losing issue for Republicans, and it's been a turnout driver massively for Democrats. So for those reasons, I feel Arizona is a very comfortable state for Joe Biden to be in. Next, Georgia. Georgia, I think, is a lot closer than Arizona is going to be. But I still think Joe Biden can win, but it's bare. I have no clue, really, who's going to win. So, in Joe Biden's favor, Raphael Warnock won. Pretty comfortable margin, Raphael Warnock won by. Warnock beat a Trump-backed candidate by, I think, about 2 points, ultimately. Pretty healthy. But was it going against Joe Biden? Brian Kemp, who is an anti-Trump Republican, won the state in pretty much what could be considered like a near landslide. I think he won 55-45. Republicans can win Georgia very easily. Donald Trump just has to moderate. That's the big key on Georgia, is how Trump is perceived. Trump is the question. Joe Biden is not the question. There's no other candidates, I think, to push Trump or Biden up. Like, for example, a lot of people notice that when Brian Kemp was on the ballot, Herschel Walker was able to do a lot better than when he didn't have him on the ballot. It's like an updraft. So I don't really know which way that's going to pull this time. Without Brian Kemp, I think Biden is the favorite because Brian Kemp isn't on the ballot and he's widely popular. But it could go either way. Pennsylvania, I put it the same tilt blue, but it's somewhere halfway between Arizona and Georgia in my mind. Pennsylvania has in the governor's race last time around, it was this really insane candidate versus a moderate blue Democrat. Like, guy went to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, like, self-proclaimed Christian nationalist. Like, not a fun guy, Doug Mastriano. So, he won a landslide victory, but the real race that really cemented it was John Fetterman, who won by about 2 points, which is pretty, in a swing state like Pennsylvania, that's a pretty healthy margin. It's not really, but, it's fine. And, won against Dr. Oz. And because Democrats did well in 2022, I think the state is more likely to go for blue than not. Next, we got Michigan here. Michigan, I think Biden has a very favorable position in Michigan. Gretchen Whitmer in 2022, it was like every Democrat national in the state won huge margins. They picked up the state house for the first time in forever. They really did win pretty much everywhere in Michigan by a very wide margin in 2022. I think in a federal election it's going to be a lot closer. Don't get me wrong. But because of that healthy position in 2022, I think it's going to be somewhat safe. Nowhere near safe. Wrong term. It's going to be, I'm more bullish on Biden winning than Trump winning. Wisconsin. Wisconsin really is a toss-up. It could go either way. I have no clue. 2022 is a guide. There is no guide on this one. There's 2 races that were important. The governor's race, where it was a Democrat governor who won re-election by about 1%, and the Senate race, which is a Republican incumbent who won the race by about 1%. So, Wisconsin really did demonstrate in 2022 it could go either way on any field. I'm just putting Wisconsin as tilt red because I do think the Midwest, I think these Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are states that over time are more likely to get redder, while Arizona, Georgia, maybe North Carolina are states that are more likely to get bluer. Suburbs, I think, are going to start tilting bluer. Rural areas are going to start tilting redder. That happened in 2016 and actually reverted a little bit in 2020, but I think that trend is still going to continue forward. I think these states are going to start becoming more red over time, and these states, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Virginia already did so. So I think Wisconsin, maybe, I just threw into Trump's category for that reason, but it really could go anywhere. Next, the Senate map. Originally, so we have a couple of places to go that we want to look at. They're defending in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, West Virginia. So I'm just going to reset. I actually can't show it to where it currently is, but I actually can. So this is how it currently looks. Democrats have a 1-seat advantage. Some split states. That incumbent caucus is the Democrats. All the independents actually do caucus to the Democrats, but that's the current map. This is where we are now. So, West Virginia. Joe Manchin, he's retired. West Virginia is like the reddest state in the country. Democrats are losing that seat. There's no question about that. Ohio. So, actually, I'm going to start with these 3 Midwestern states. Incumbency has a lot of advantages. So, one of the really depressing facts I actually know about 2022, that was like the first time in 100 years that no incumbent candidate won or lost re-election. Every single person that ran for re-election in 2022 won, which is a really sad fact about where our country is nowadays, and we can't get any new ideas or faces in there. But beside the point, I'm leaning towards an incumbency favorite, still holding true. So I'm just going to give Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania to the Democrats. Same as Nevada and Arizona for those reasons. Incumbency is a big key. But the two races that really, I think most people, it's uncontroversial, the Democrats are most likely to win these. But the two big states, Ohio, Montana. Montana, deep blood red district, blue Democrat currently up for re-election. Steve Bullock is a very moderate Democrat. He's running a very good race so far. The polling so far has him up. I mean, it's very early. But I'm just giving him based off of the polling. And the polling has him up by a wide margin. So either the polling's off by a wide margin or it's going to tighten up. But I think, and I'm just leaning towards incumbents doing well in 2024. Because that's what happened in 2022. And based off how polarized we are, I kind of feel like that might be how it's going to go for a while. And then Ohio. Ohio is a state that used to be a swing state. Now it's considered a pretty consistent Republican state. Ohio really could go anywhere, but the polling currently has a... How am I forgetting his name? What's his name? Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown is a very popular senator, but in a very red state. I think his popularity is going to push him forward most likely, but it's a red state. It's going to be very difficult for Sherrod Brown to hold on there. So ultimately, I think it's going to be 50-50 as a likely outcome, but Montana, Ohio could go red very easily. And next, I made a house prediction for how I think it's going to go. So we're not going district by district on this one. I did use some guides to help me out with this one. Here's some key races that I think. California. So these California suburbs around in these blue areas, they could go red, but like I think Democrats have been polling at these districts for a while now. I think that these districts are more likely to go blue because I think suburbs are going to be polling fairly well for Democrats in this upcoming election cycle. I don't know. It's going to be close. Colorado, I think Democrats are going to pick up a couple of these. Oh, I probably should mark that seat for blue. I think that seat is fairly comfortable blue, but California, I am more favorable towards the idea. These states are swing, but I feel suburbs are going to go Democrat. I probably should add the tilt color in. Why don't I add tilt? But the other big flip that I think is going to happen over here in New York. So, New York was a very good state for Republicans in 2022. There was a redistricting process that gave them a bunch of new seats. They gave them a bunch of seats. Also, on top of that, they had a very strong governor candidate. The Democratic Party of New York in 2022 is just a mess. They won like 4 or 5 seats, which is probably their current House majority in New York alone. I think for that reason, like New York, I think he's going to go kind of start flipping back towards the Democrats in 2022. Pretty much just going to go back to being a pretty blue state. But I think a lot of these House seats that Republicans won in 2022 are going to flip back because their the governor's race, they're not going to have Lee Zeldin helping them out anymore. They're not going to have, they're just not going to have all the advantage. Lee Zeldin's going to be gone. The Andrew Cuomo scandal is going to be out of memory. It's going to be another federal election. I really feel like New York is going to go back towards Democrats in 2022. So ultimately, here's my final prediction. I think Joe Biden is probably going to win the election. It's going to be a tight race. This is my prediction map. The Senate, I think Democrats are, it's really 50-50. I mean, if they lose Ohio or Montana, I probably give them a 55% chance at winning either of them individually. So to hold on to both of them, I don't know. It could go either way. I think they are going to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona. There's going to be a weird split ticket Nevada Trump voter, I think. In the House, I think Democrats are the slight favorites to win the House this time around. California, they're going to pick up some. New York, they're going to pick up some. Random traction from around the country. So, yeah. That's my predictions for the 2020 election. Thank you all, and have a good day.